Hello and welcome to What the Tech from Boast AI, where we talk with some of the brilliant minds behind new and exciting tech initiatives to learn what it takes to tackle technological uncertainty and eventually change the world. Today, I'm thrilled to speak with another Boast partner and an exciting innovator in Atlanta, Canada, Matt Cooper of Volta, a Halifax, Nova Scotia-based startup community. At Volta, Matt leads an amazing team of professionals dedicated to helping founders and their teams drastically improve the odds of building a high-growth startup in Atlanta, Canada. One important thing to note about Volta is that they describe themselves as a place of mentorship and community, but not an accelerator. That's because their focus is on quality and quantity, and not necessarily speed. I'll leave it to Matt to get into the nitty-gritty and go deeper into what separates Volta from accelerators in the space and the great work his team is doing to boost Atlanta, Canada's tech ecosystem. But before that, and without further ado, welcome to the show, Matt.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Actually.
Sure. Well, born and raised here, grew up a little bit out west, but mainly most of my time has been here in Nova Scotia. My background has been last 20 plus years has mainly been as a founder. Most of the teams that I've worked with have been in the tech space, either software or hardware software sort of thing. My core background's really developed in two key areas, product and marketing, but it's always been startups.
Always been startups. Okay, so I'd love to know, why startups? We get a lot of different answers, especially with people who have a different background that's not necessarily touching marketing. I know that's one that I can probably relate to a little more than the traditional founder community, but yeah, why startups?
I don't know if I would have, if I went back the couple decades I've been working on this, I don't think I ever felt like I had a choice. I started my first business right out of high school, just kind of hooked right away and really didn't look back. So it's mainly been just my, pursuit of technology is kind of at the core of everything. I love working with people and I love solving really hard problems. And so this is kind of where startups intersect.
No, I love that. That's a mentality that we share very closely here at Boast. We're a team of founders on our side too, and helping other founders is what brought people to the company. I'm not a founder myself, but it's what brought me over to Boast as well, and what made me want to have conversations with folks like you at Volta. Yes, I'd love to know, is there a specific vertical or industry that you've been passionate about, or is sky's the limit?
Vertical industry, no. I mean, I'd say from a technology standpoint, there's definitely, the last 6 months, I don't think you could avoid getting bombarded with the new enhancements in AI. But I think the core of my expertise and where I think most of my passions lie are in product. I really love building technologies and helping people build technologies. But that's also part of why I'm, really enthralled with the recent advancements in AI. I think this changed more so than most that I've seen in the last 20 years. Like I've been through the boom and the bust of the internet a couple times over, and this feels quite different. And I think it's the first time that I've seen such rapid applicability of a technology to the industry that I'm working in, which is startups. The ability for teams to kind of leverage it really, really fast and prototype really, really fast and figure out something that's urgent enough to work on is like nothing I've seen in the last 20 years. So I think that it's been product mainly, mostly software and technology that I love. But yeah, the recent introduction of some of these new capabilities is really exciting.
No, absolutely. I know that we're infusing a lot more AI into what we do here at Boast for all the reasons you just checked off too. It is a force multiplier of basically getting teams to move at speed in some directions. I also know that there's concern too in some arenas. It's very well heard, I think, out on the internet what the concerns are, but it is exciting when you see how startups, though, are embracing it. Now they can really leverage it to do more than they ever could before. I'll pick your brain on that point when we get deeper into the conversation, but I guess before we move into Volta, is there any past projects that you've been particularly proud of that you kind of want to shout out or shine a light on?
So maybe teams. I mean, a lot of my time before I kind of jumped in with both feet in what I would say startup was working with a team called ISL in Halifax. So that's where I really went deep on building out my expertise on the digital marketing side. So a lot of it was like very heavily measured performance-based marketing. So that was an amazing, really great time, really great team. Spent almost 5 years with that team. I would say the most meaningful projects would probably be the ones that I did myself. So my previous startup, which is called Swept, and I went through a couple accelerators there. One here in Atlanta, Canada, called Propel. And then the other one was 500 startups in Mountain View. And I think it's just those were particularly challenging times. And I think it's where, I saw the most development, both professionally, but also emotionally, as far as like working with teams and leveling up in all fronts. So I think those are, I draw on those experiences, those few years through that really, really tough but exciting time on a daily basis. So yeah, I think that's probably some meaningful projects that I've been working on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are the kinds of things that stick with you. And when you can apply them to what you're doing forever, it's gold. So that's fantastic. Brings me to Volta. Now, I know you're the CEO. Could you give us a little bit of kind of the genesis story around how Volta came together, what role you've played since you've come over to Volta, and just generally what you guys are doing in the community and what makes you different than folks who might call themselves an accelerator outright?
Yeah, sure. So the Volta, this is our 10th year. It was created back, 10 years ago by a couple founders, Jevin McDonald and Milan Vrelnik. I can never pronounce his name right. Apologies, Milan. And they both teamed up with two on the investment side. So Patrick Keefe and Jay Curry at Acoa. And they kicked it off. They were basically just unhappy with the level of support that was going on in the ecosystem for early stage teams at that time. And they, like most founders do, just kicked it off. And this was back when Volta was at Spring Garden Road. So we were in kind of a little bit of a shabby spot, but shabby in a good way. And it attracted kind of the first few individual teams that were growing their business out of there. We learned about Volta. My previous startup, Swept, started as a tech-enabled service company in the cleaning industry. Volta kind of came on our roadmap about a year and a half after it started, and we had won the cleaning contract for Volta. That was the first introduction to knowing about, this growing, starting. It was just starting there, the first couple of years of the community. And so that was a really cool way to learn about. We were cleaning there and learning, running into all these other founders. And at the time, my co-founder and I were kind of committed to growing out this service-enabled business. And then we basically flipped over to SaaS for the cleaning industry that we were once in. And then we were residents. So my connection back to Volta as a resident goes back to the first couple of years that it was around. And then since then, I've been in the community both as a mentor, an instructor, on the board of a couple of the programs that we've run in the last 10 years. And then 2 years ago, just in June, so it's just over 2 years ago, I joined the team full time. And at the time, it was probably the catalyst for my joining the team was really about how COVID had altered the value prop of what a startup incubator was really about, right? So at the time, before COVID hit, we were like many other, but really densely populated incubator here in Halifax. And a lot of the value that Volta brought was running the educational programs, but also really co-locating teams together. And that forms community, right? It's a critical component of the community. And so we were really excited to be a key player in that and helping kind of gel the community together. And then COVID kind of fundamentally changed how teams connected and worked. And most of the startups needed to adapt to these new dynamics that were going on, and Volta was really no different. I had been kind of just doing outreach mid-COVID and chatting with founders and investors and figuring out what was going on and asking for ways that I could help. And I kept hearing the same theme, which was teams were really appreciative of the education that was out there. It was plentiful. It was high quality. There were tons of them that talked about the ability to kind of get into these programs and get the education they needed, but they felt that there was a consistent gap after they exited those programs, right? So it was kind of the key areas where we started was just throwing out ideas about how might we actually redesign Volta's support systems in a place where walls were no longer the main way that we added value. So a lot of that just started as an MVP, like any other sort of product. And I joined the team to kind of be the proof of concept. And the core thesis there, the hypothesis we had was there would be a way to deliver more tailored kind of hands-on support to help teams implement some of the theory they'd been exposed to in some of these programs. So it was kind of taking from a lot of the best approaches from all the different types of education frameworks that are out there, but then right-sizing it for the team, because every team is slightly different. Their capacity is different, their backgrounds, domain expertise, all of them. I often refer to every startup as like a snowflake, right? There's no two exactly the same. And that's where we tried to kind of iterate on our new support system, which is probably the biggest way that we were different from most. The difference, going back to your original question around the difference between an accelerator and an incubator, I would consider us a incubator, not suggesting that going through any of these accelerators is bad. If anything, I would say the only reason we get to execute this sort of a support system is because there are so many great education accelerators out here that provide mentoring and those sorts of things. But so what we do is we've phased out cohorts. So we have continuous intake. Founders can jump in anytime that they're ready to take on support. There's no predetermined time frame. So we heard that a lot too, was just at the point where you start getting the hang of things, support kind of gets cut off and you're through the program. So we started with those two kind of four core fundamentals, which were, as long as the teams were willing to bring forth the effort and demonstrate their ability to not only, get their heads down and execute, but prove meaningful learning opportunities were taking place, and that progress was a result of that learning. We're here to support them. So I'd say our real major differences is that we're continuous intake and no timeframes, but specifically we invest in the skill development of these teams through a network of coaches and advisors that we cover the costs for the most part. And then there's some cost sharing as teams progress and get to certain stages of raising capital, but we don't take equity in the companies, right? So that's somewhat different from others that are practicing more of this bespoke or tailored support. And really we're here to support teams regardless of where that support is. So we work really, really intentionally with lots of other organizations. So even if we're not the best team to bring that support, we're looking to partner with a number of different organizations. And we do it not from a referral base, but from an operational integration perspective. So we actually share resources, and the individuals in these other organizations join our team meetings, and we use the same tools and processes, playbooks, those sorts of things. And really, it's all focused around making sure we're reducing the friction for founders to stay super focused on building their product, talking to their customer, and building their business. So we do everything we can to put them first and make sure we're organizing all of our support systems around that fact.
That's awesome. I can very much see where your background in product and marketing really becomes a strength when you switch that value prop. It's less about bringing people physically together, because that's just not a reality in the same way that it used to be, and more about getting them that asset to the resources they need to get it off the ground, getting them access to the people who can hop in on those meetings. That's really, really cool.
And to add that there's still a critical component of what we're providing is the physical support. Up until COVID, where our support was really just restricted to people here in Halifax that wanted to be co-located. We open virtual residency, so we support teams all across Atlantic Canada, but we also are really excited to open our new community space that in October, which will still be able to support lots of our events and co-working, but also there'll be 20 dedicated offices for teams that do get a ton of value from being co-located. So it's not like flipping from one to the other. It's really kind of right sizing what size of a physical footprint we need, and making sure the resources are optimized as well as we can. So it should, I'm really excited in October, because when we open our doors, there's going to be a heavy level of density, and community is a key component. Like I said, before COVID, that was a key piece of how we added value, and we continue to want to do that for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I know Boast, we're a remote first organization, kind of just by default. Like I said at the beginning of the call, I'm based in Boston. Most of my team is up in Canada, but they've been making sure I have access to resources to make sure that I feel very involved, not just with the team, but also with the larger ecosystem. Part of that has been do your homework on what Volta is doing, really find out what they're offering to the community, tap into those resources as needed. I know that We love partnering with you guys. I guess to pivot a little bit, could you tell me a bit more about how you partner with Boast, how you partner with companies like Boast in general, and what's
Yeah.
kind of the criteria for who you're looking for in a good partner for your
Yeah.
ecosystem?
Great question. So I got introduced to you guys through our head of partnership, Sean. And so his job is really to find the best partners out there. And we do have, a very clear set of criteria that we're looking for. So our partners, we're looking that they have expertise working with startups, right? We know that not every type of business is going to cater to the unique dynamics that exist in startups. There's a lot of shiny object syndrome going around, and it is what it is, right? Like if you don't choose to work with that type of a team, because they're constantly having to react to new information and kind of do a lot with just a little bit of resources, knowing those dynamics is really important. So being able to empathize with our core customer, which is our startups, is a really key thing. Second is that we want them to really be problem-centric, right? So teams have clear, specific obstacles that they have to get around. And our support is really kind of based around that clear idea of what's an urgent problem that we can help them solve right now, right? And sometimes that's through advisors, and other times it's through partners. And we're even experimenting with, for those partners that are interested in working more specifically with teams, but are really focused on delivering that skill development. Partners can consider becoming advisors, and advisors can consider becoming partners. And this is mainly the sponsorship side. We're looking for teams that want that added level of promotion, can get in front of startups and have products and services that we think are really key to their success. So we create every opportunity we can for them to help. And I think that's really leads to the third. We want our partners really to be able to demonstrate their impact in a measurable way to a startup, right? What's an outcome that drove that growth? And we really center around that support around those key areas. And so whenever we're connecting with our partners, we're looking for not just, it's not just the metrics that we're driving. Are they resonating with the goals that we're setting out for, diversity inclusion in our community? Are they focused on like helping these early stage teams become much bigger companies, right? And we're looking for that alignment of our core customer and who we think we're kind of exist to help are really aligned quite well. And then I'd say the last area is really that they're willing to hold themselves accountable to that measured impact, right? And that comes through, follow-ups on how the support went and, us checking in with the startups and making sure that the products and services that our partners offer are doing what we intend them to do. Like every good product, you need quality control in there. You need individuals who are really, their focus is to figure out what's wrong so that can be, really tuned and improve over time. And so we commit very intentionally to that. So those core 4 areas, we have those conversations up front. We want it to be an enthusiastic investment on both parts. And then we're just excited to work with people that want to help other startups.
No, that's so cool. And kind of a spin on that. We've been a little bit on a conference tour. We were at Collision a few weeks back. We were at Startup Fest last week. And the thing that's been so eye-opening to me is just what a first-name basis we have with so many different people within the community. They know Anastasia from Vancouver. They know Carlos from Toronto. They know Nicholas in Montreal. None of us are strangers here because we are held accountable to our relationships. We do follow back up with these folks. We try to be as involved as we can with you guys because, again, we're founders in our own right in a lot of ways. And that's just music to our ears. I think, again, there's a lot of one-to-one with what we look for in a partnership on our end between what you guys are looking for. And it comes back to just like having that measurable expertise, but measurable by the right metrics. As in, you're not just how many people signed up to your platform, that number you can build up. It's what were the outcomes? How did you help this company get out of that pre-seed stage, for instance, or something along those lines?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So I guess my last few questions, we've talked a lot about Volta, a lot about the partnership with Boast specifically, and a lot about you. Larger startup scene. What's kind of your take on the state of the scene? It's a big, broad-ranging question, but I guess for late July 2023, how are things looking from where you're sitting?
Well, I'd say the biggest shift in the last 12 months, I'd say has has gone from, a ton of teams raising a ton of capital to pretty much the antithesis of that, right? The later stage teams even further. So I think that has happened in a short amount of time, unlike ever that I've seen before in the last 20 years. So especially the last 10 years even. So I think that's probably the biggest shift. But there's a ton of investment going into AI, and I think with good reason. But also, like any other kind of new trend, there are aspects of investments that are being made, or the vast majority of them won't work out. So I'm really excited about teams that are taking advantage of the technology, but doing it in a way that's not just like the buzz terms, right? Like to bring it to the front and center of your product and say you're an AI driven product will be, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, no different than when you had a .com at the end of your name, right? That is really not near as important as whether or not you're converting these new capabilities into something that adds value to your core customers. So I think the thing that I'm seeing in the tightening up of the market as far as investments going is that it's ratcheting all the levels up, right? Like teams that would have been able to raise capital really, really easily in the maybe 12 months ago are really having to demonstrate objectively what their traction in the market is. And so for an organization like us, it's not, it's really hard. It's hard to see teams fail. It's hard to see, teams having to shut their doors. But then at the same time, you're seeing teams that are really focused on those measurable results to their customer, just really starting to pick up quickly, right? Because that's how they were kind of pre looking at before the shift took place. They're measuring their own success by that measurable impact to their customers. So for those teams, I think the sky's the limit on what some of these capabilities are. We've just in a very small team of just over 10 of us, we're leveraging AI to take care of like hundreds of hours of effort that we would have otherwise needed to do, whether or not it's data entry or reporting or any of those sorts of things. And then I think what's really exciting is it gets you freed up to build one-on-one relationships with these teams, right? So we're spending more face time. We're investing in more advisors that can go deeper on their teams and really build those skills. So really excited to see the teams that are digging in and leveraging that technology and the opportunity in general, right? So there's the acceleration, like I mentioned earlier, of how you can have an idea for what might add value, prototype it, get it into market, and then iterate on it. Just the clear, even with everything that we've built at Volta has been built on no code platforms. I started as a developer, but I haven't developed for 20 years, and the abilities for us to write little custom code and just it's unbelievable what you can do now with even 2 years ago. None of the tools, the capabilities were there, right? So you can really demonstrate, like get that strong signal from the market that you're onto something, and then you can decide for yourself whether or not venture capital is the right way to go, because it's not for everybody. So I think it's really those two core things, right? It's the teams that were really focused on their customers are doing even better because they were always focused on that measurable impact. And it's allowing them to kind of iterate on their product a lot faster and try and build that kind of level up their value that they're delivering to their teams.
Absolutely. I think that makes perfect sense. And it also reflects a lot of what we've seen too. Again, going back to the roadshow that we've been doing at Collision, AI was on every single board. It was on every single brand name. And it's not a bad thing. It makes perfect sense. Every speaker at the show is also saying, if you're not in the AI game, you're going to lose out in some dimension. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about those who are just very focused on the outcomes for their customers and actually proving those results, because it's what the customer gets at the end of the day, not that they checked an AI box. That's going to equate to your success in the long term. So that's a point.
Anyone that's, you're going to have the ability to kind of build a long, valuable relationship is going to know whether or not that's just kind of a period at the end of your sentence or an actual thing that you're using to add value. It comes out pretty quick, right? It doesn't take long before that becomes self-evident.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. All right. No, so I know we're getting near close to time. What are you excited about for the rest of 2023? What's on deck for the Volta team? And just personally in general, what are you looking forward to see as the year plays out?
Yeah. So I think probably the thing that's on a lot of the team's plates right now is opening our new space in October. So we're really excited to kind of get back into the events that'll kind of bring all these founders together and the other key stakeholders in our community. And we're just excited to kind of get reintegrated back into a physical space where a lot of the collaboration that's taking place is happening. The team's doing really well. We have a kind of a temporary setup in one of these co-working spaces here in downtown Halifax, and the teams have been taking advantage of some of those resources. But we're kind of a local team, right? Like there are some of us that are remote, but a lot of us really thrive in that environment where we're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. So I'm really excited to get us back into a spot there. And then I'd say the other one is just continued really tactical engagement with some of our collaborators. So partners like you guys, and doing events just like this, like the actual boots on the ground, doing the work to get the word out, but also working with some of the collaborators in our ecosystem that are really aligned around why we're doing what we're doing and are excited to kind of take on responsibility to get that support to the founders, as opposed to making founders jump through hoops and get, to pull and extract that value. There are so many hungry startup founders out there, and it feels like a very, very exciting time to kind of be thinking about starting or trying to grow a business. So we're just excited to be able to continue that support and do it in a meaningful way that is leveraging our entire community, not just the stuff that Volta's working on.
That's so cool. Yeah. And Matt, I hope I get to meet you guys in person at the new office in October. I don't know when I'll be up there, but that's something I'm very much looking
for. There's a reason to come now. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Now, I know that one last thing before we hop off, we're working with you guys on an Ocean Tech pitching competition that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Are you looking forward to that too?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, I'm pumped. We're going to be socializing that one on all of our channels. So if you guys need to find out any more details there, they will be in the show notes for this, but that one's going to be very exciting. I can just say anecdotally from Startup Fest, my favorite part was the Ocean Fest portion. And if it's even a taste of what we saw there, I am so excited for what we're going to get at the competition.
Some really amazing technology is being worked on for sure.
It gave me a lot of hope. So that was very cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. This has been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Paul. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us. Please subscribe to What the Tech from Boast AI, wherever you get your podcasts.